Today on Stock Charts in Focus, we're getting personal, digging into the specific chart styles that I use in my own personal approach to evaluating stocks and ETFs on Stock Charts. Specifically, we're going to look at the leveling system that I have to layer in indicators as I go and build up my charts from simply a price view all the way up to a more complete indicator-packed view. Lots to cover on today's show. Of course, you know what it is. It's all new. It's all here. It's Stock Charts in Focus. All right, my friends, welcome to the show, Stock Charts in Focus, our product focus show here on Stock Charts TV, where we dig into the site, dive into the features, show you around the tools, and of course, we get you more value out of Stock Charts. That is our mission here on Stock Charts in Focus. If you leave after today's show knowing something that you didn't know, seeing something you hadn't seen before, or thinking about something in a way you hadn't thought about it before, we have done our job. My name is Grayson Roze, Vice President of Operations here at StockCharts.com. And I think we're gonna have a blast on today's show because, of course, as we go through this show, showing off stock charts, showing off the different tools and features, a lot of what we end up highlighting is actually what I'm using in my own approach to the markets. Of course, I get a lot of people asking, hey, how are your charts set up? What are you doing? How have you organized things? So today, as a result of some of those questions that we've been receiving for the last few months, really, we're actually going to dig into some of my personal chart styles. I think we're going to have fun, and specifically what we're going to look at today is the leveling system or the layering system that I've built for my specific chart style. So I have a leveling system to my chart styles that allows me to start with a very simple just price view and then sort of layer in additional indicators and additional views, overlays, all that stuff as I go, sort of building up my charts from a very simple view to a much more complete view. All of that is going to make sense in just a minute as we get into the show, the meat of today's show, showing off all the charts. So we got a lot to cover. Let's get right to it. So we are starting here on the SharpCharts workbench, of course, our legacy tool, one that most of you are probably familiar with. On today's show, we're actually not going to cover ACP, which is our new interactive advanced charting platform. But I do want to mention before we really get rolling, the same concepts that we're talking about today, the same things that I'm going to show off that I use this leveling system to my chart styles, it applies in ACP. I have the exact same setup over there. So regardless of which platform I'm using, I actually have the same structure with these levels of chart styles. So you can do all of these things that we're going to cover today in SharpCharts. You can do all of those in ACP in our new interactive advanced charting platform as well. What we're starting with, though, is a very, very simple chart. This is a 2-year chart. In this case, we're looking at Etsy, and we don't have very much to this. We've got a couple of moving averages, as you can see. Those are listed over here, the 20, 50, 100, and 200, and the 400, finally a longer-term moving average. We've got price labels on this chart, but that is it. So this is, for me, what I call the level 0 chart. Price, of course, is the most important thing that we have in the markets. And every indicator that we add, every other view that we add, is really just kind of building on top of price. But at the end of the day, the most important thing that we need to be focused on is the actual price move itself. So I have what I call the level 0 chart, which is basically just a price view. Now, as I mentioned in the sort of the opening, I have levels above that I can then jump to and sort of build in additional indicators as I go. So the best way to highlight that, what I'm actually going to show off, is over here on the left side of the SharpCharts workbench. You can see that I have this level 0 chart, level 0, 2 years, set as actually one of my style buttons. These are what we call style buttons. You can actually assign specific chart styles to these buttons, which makes them really easy to access. So we're going to show this off as we go. To pull up any of these chart styles, all you've got to do is click one of these little style buttons. But you can actually open up this menu. There's a lot more here behind the scenes. You can actually open this up, and now you get sort of this full featured look at all of your different chart styles here in the sort of the sidebar menu that pops up from the left side of SharpCharts. So the reason that I'm pulling that up is because this is how we're going to highlight the different levels. We're going to run through all of these charts. So just sit tight as we get through all of the different levels to these charts. But as you can see, I organize my chart styles in a couple of different ways. I organize them by security type. So whether it's a specific stock, an individual stock, an ETF, an index, I've even got things for cryptocurrencies. I've got index ETFs. I've got all of these different sort of groups. In this case, what we're going to be looking at are the specific chart styles that I have for individual stocks, individual equities. I also organize them by the period. So in this case, we're looking at daily charts, but you can see down here, which we'll talk about in just a minute, I've also got specific chart styles for weekly charts, and I organize them in that way as well. And the same goes for the ETFs, the same goes for the indexes. All of those are organized by security type and then by period, daily or weekly, even up to monthly, as well as intraday, narrower than the daily view. From there, I have a couple of other layers to these chart styles. I've got my leveling system, which is what we're going to talk about today, but I've also got the actual time frame of the chart, whether it's a 2-year, a 5-year, a 1-year, all of those, you'll see that. So in this case, I've got a block of chart styles, which are really the go-tos for me when I'm looking at individual stocks for my specific time frame that I like to use in the market. 2-year charts make a lot of sense to me. So some of the most important charts that I look at on a daily chart are 2 years. And then on a weekly chart, I'm looking typically at 5-year charts. But I've got these blocks kind of organized, and we're going to run through this in just a second. So what you can see here is that leveling system that I'm talking about. So we've got level 0, and these are all the 2-year charts. Then we've got level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. So the concept here, now that we've kind of given you the background on all these chart styles, the concept here is that I'm starting with a very simple view when I'm pulling up an individual stock. And I'm jumping to sort of graduating, if you will, to more complex views as I go. But again, my goal as a technician is to stay focused on the things that are truly important, stay focused on the most important features of the chart. And when I think about the most important features of a chart, of course, price is number one. Price always comes first. So in my sort of level 0, which is the first look that I pull up, I've got just price. So let's go back to that for just a second. We'll close this down. Here is our simple price view. So when I pull up an individual stock, in this case, we're looking at Etsy. I pull up that individual stock. Oh, we need to type in our ticker symbol here. Pull up that individual stock. I've got the most simple view possible to keep me really focused on price. When I open this back up, from there, now that I've gotten that price look, we can start to layer in additional indicators. So for me, the next thing up after price is relative strength. I want to stay in things that are outperforming the market, things that are leading us higher, things that are outperforming the total index. So for me, with individual stocks, I like to benchmark everything against VTI, which is the Vanguard Total Index, represents the total US stock market. So in the level 1 layer, again, sort of graduating up to that next level, we can click that, and here we go. Here is my level 1 chart. So we've started with that basic price view, and now at the top of this, you can see that I've layered in, or sort of leveled in, the relative strength line. So in this case, we're looking at Etsy versus the Vanguard Total Index. This is a ratio chart. To do that, you simply type in this case, $symbol, colon VTI. We actually did an episode all about ratio charts just a couple of weeks ago. So we'll put a link to that in the description below. But for this case, we're looking at this ratio chart of Etsy versus the total market. So we've still got our very simple price view here with the exact same moving averages. And the only indicator that we've added at level 1 is this relative strength line. So again, this keeps me focused really clearly on the price action and brings in one additional detail, which is that relative strength line. So it allows me to say, okay, Etsy's moving higher, but is it moving higher at a faster pace than the market? Is it outperforming the total market? Or is it moving higher and actually underperforming the total market? In this case, for instance, we can see that Etsy had been outperforming for a long time on this uptrend, took a bit of a breather here at the start of 21, consolidated a bit in this range, really kind of prior resistance turned into support there, and is now starting to pick back up, has had a nice run to the upside, and is starting to outperform the market again. So again, I've got this kind of level 1, the next level up from that pure price view, just bringing in a single indicator. So we can keep running through these. Again, I've got this leveling system, so I can jump from here. Now that I've sort of been focused on the price action and I've brought in that relative strength, we can jump up to the next view, which is my, in this case, my level 2 chart. So very, very similar. We've got the same very simple price view. We've got the same relative strength line at the top, but I've added in a couple more things. In this case, I've turned on the full quote, which is an option in the SharpCharts settings. You can turn on this full quote view, brings in some additional stats, like for instance, market cap right here. That's one that I look at a lot, the scooter score, things like that. And then down below, you can see that we've added in volume here. So I'm bringing volume into the picture a little bit. And I've added one additional indicator, which is the RSI, an important one that I personally like to watch. So again, think about that kind of leveling system. We've gone from that very simple price view where we're really staying focused on price. We've layered in at the next level the relative strength line, and now graduating up to another level above that, we've layered in volume, one additional indicator, and we've layered in RSI, an additional indicator down below. We can continue this, and so when we open this back up, we've got our level 3 chart up next. So I jump up to that level 3 chart, and you can see a very similar chart. We've got our full quote, our relative strength line, we've got our price view with volume and RSI. But now down below, I've brought in a couple more indicators. In my case, I like to watch the accumulation distribution line and the on balance volume line. I actually position those in the same panel. They're very, very similar indicators, so I can kind of see how they're moving either together or actually how the two of them are diverging, which is has some interesting implications. But I've got that accumulation distribution and on balance volume panel here. And then I bring in the scooter line. That's our StockCharts technical rank. And in my case, I like to put a horizontal line at 75 on that indicator. But again, as I'm sort of running through the full picture of an individual stock, I've been focused on the price the whole time. I've layered in that relative strength. I've layered in volume and the RSI. And then when I graduate up to level 3, I'm layering in accumulation distribution, another look at volume there, and the scooter score, which is a measure of technical relative strength, technical strength, all in sort of one number. So I've layered in all those views, and I've kind of built my way up to a more complex chart. Again, staying focused on the price move and the relative strength as I'm going. Finally, of course, I've got my level 4 chart, and this is where I get to sort of the big daddy, the most advanced view that I look at, brings in the most number of indicators, all of that. So we can see very, very similar here. We've got our relative strength line at the top, which is Etsy versus VTI, the total market. But down below that, I actually bring in a couple of additional relative strength layers. So in this case, the green line, as you can see, is the sector that Etsy belongs to, which is consumer discretionary, versus the total market. So I'm not only looking at how is this stock performing relative to the total market, I'm also looking at how is this stock's sector performing relative to the total market. I don't really want something that's kind of floating out there on its own. If it's in a weak sector, that might actually drag down the individual stock. So if something that I'm looking at is actually in an incredibly strong sector that's outperforming the market, that gives me a lot more confidence in that individual name. In this case, we can see consumer discretionary starting to pick up versus the total market, but actually has been weak for quite some time. So I've got that sort of other relative strength view here with the sector versus the total market. And then we've also got the industry group that Etsy belongs to, in this case, specialized consumer services versus its sector. So is it in a strong industry group? That's another question that I want to know. It's sort of this, this most advanced view, this level 4 view. So in this case, we can see Etsy's industry group has actually been pretty weak relative to the consumer discretionary sector as a whole for quite some time. Now, below that, of course, we've got our simple price view. We've got our volume indicator, just like we had at level 3. We've got the RSI below, accumulation distribution, and the scooter line. So really the only thing that I've added in here at level 4 are these 2 additional relative strength panels up at the top. But I'm going to open this back up and talk again. Hopefully I've hammered this point home. When I'm pulling up an individual stock, a lot of times it's really helpful to have this leveling, layering system where I can bring in additional indicators easily, not by going down and mucking with the settings, but simply by clicking on one of these style buttons, clicking on one of my saved chart styles. I can add in these additional indicators as I go. I don't have to pack my chart with everything that I could possibly want all in one view and then try to sort of sift through it and ignore some parts and stay focused on price. I can keep myself focused on price simply by having a chart style that only has price to it. So again, when we go back to that level 0, I can start with this look, really stay focused on the price action, stay focused on the most important thing that's happening for this stock, and start to click through these levels. So again, with these style buttons makes it really, really easy because I can click simply in one click. I can click to level 1. I can click over to level 2. Here we go. We've got our level 2 chart. Click up to level 3. And so as I'm running through individual stocks, I can really kind of build my charts up. I find that that is a powerful mental boost for me, helping me stay focused on the indicators that I want to see in the right order, sort of prioritizing things. So again, we've built up all of these different levels simply by saving chart styles. Now, as you can see, as I sort of touched on earlier, I do the same thing across other security types. I do the same thing across other periods. So for instance, I might want to look at weekly charts. Well, I've got a level 0 5-year weekly chart for individual stocks as well. So let's click over to that. I'll show you how this works. If I'm pulling up a longer term view for Etsy, I can start with that level 0 5-year chart, which is sort of the default view for me. In this case, it's a little more complex than the level 0 we're looking at for the daily time frame, because I do have the relative strength line on here, Etsy versus the total market. I want to track that over a longer period of time. But my sort of level 0 starting point for those weekly charts is a very simple price view and a relative strength line. I do have the full quote turned on there just for fun as well. But I can start to layer in the additional indicators that I want to see. So I've got my level 1 weekly chart here. Again, a 5-year chart. I'm bringing in volume. I'm bringing in RSI. I've got those additional indicators at sort of the next level up, graduating to that next level up. And when I really want to pack my weekly chart with all the things I want to track, all the indicators I want to track, all I've got to do is come down here, click on my level 2 weekly chart. And now I've got that full featured weekly chart with, again, the accumulation distribution line, the on-balance volume, and that scooter line over a longer term period. So having these kind of levels to my chart styles, again, allows me to really stay focused on the most important parts of my charts as I go in the right order. So it keeps me focused on price, then relative strength, then bringing in a little bit of volume analysis and the RSI, and then bringing in some more complex indicators like accumulation distribution, the scooter line, some of those additional relative strength panels like we were looking at earlier. So this is a great tip from me that I personally get a lot of benefit out of. Again, having these kind of levels to my different chart styles. And you can see that I've also done this down here. One thing that I wanted to show you, I've also done this, like I said, for different time frames, different durations. So in this case, we've got the same exact setup, the individual stock styles, daily charts, level 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. But instead of those 2-year charts like we were looking at before, I've actually saved the exact same chart styles with 1-year time frames. So we can jump over and take a look at that. We've got our 1-year, very simple price view, the level 0, just price and a couple of moving averages on here. So again, level 0 keeps us focused and a little bit of a narrow time frame looking at 1 year. We can jump up to the level 1 chart. Again, the exact same chart that we were looking at before, just price and the relative strength line. But instead of looking at it over 2 years, I'm looking at it over 1 year. Because I've got these chart styles saved in this structure, it makes it really easy to jump to any of these views. Here we're looking at the level 2 over a 1-year period for those individual stocks. Again, layering in volume, bringing in the RSI. And so by having these chart styles all set up, it makes it really, really easy to access all of these different views. You can see as I kind of flip through my other chart styles here, I've got all of those different organizations. I've got ETFs, very specific chart styles for ETFs. I've got specific chart styles for indexes over a daily time frame, daily period, a weekly, a monthly, intraday, chart styles for specific indexes. And then for index ETFs as well. So something like, what I mean by index ETF, something like VTI that really is kind of an index, but it is an ETF. It's actually something you can buy. I want to view those in a little bit of a different way. Very similar to how I view the traditional indexes, but I do look at those in a little bit of a different way. So here you can kind of get a sense of all the different chart styles that I have in my account. And again, if we flipped over to ACP, we'd be looking at something very, very similar. So this layering, leveling system that I have, hopefully you've seen the power of that and can bring that maybe into your own approach. Now we're gonna go back to this level 0 chart because I wanna show you one little trick here on the SharpCharts workbench that I personally love to use. You'll notice at the top, some of you might have noticed this if you've been paying really close attention, we're looking at Etsy, which is actually part of the S&P 500. And because I have a chart style saved with all of the components, the individual members of the S&P 500, we're actually looking at that chart list right now. So we've got our chart list with all the S&P 500 stocks. We're looking at Etsy specifically as just kind of one example. But when I open this up, you can see all of the different stocks in the S&P 500, all 500 of them. So let's say that I wanted to actually run through all of the stocks in the S&P 500, or maybe we wanted to do this with a smaller group like the Dow, which only has 30 stocks in it. Well, I might want to take this, this simple view and flip through all of the charts in the S&P 500 with this very simple price view. So what I can do to take this chart style and assign it to everything in this chart list that I've created with all the components of the S&P 500, I can actually come down to the bottom of the SharpCharts workbench. And because I've selected that chart list up here, I'm in that chart list. The SharpCharts workbench basically thinks that I'm in that chart list. We can come down to this little section here, chart lists, and you can see this note, apply the current chart style to all charts in the selected chart list. So if I wanted to assign this chart style to everything in this S&P 500 list, all I've got to do is come down here, hit apply style to all. I'm going to hit confirm here twice. And now if I change this, we'll flip over, we'll hit this little arrow, flip over to Evergy. You can see that we've got that same very simple price view assigned to everything in this list. So as we start to flip through all the stocks in the S&P 500, we've got that simple price view. So let's say we went through this, we flipped through all 500, maybe it's a weekend and we're sitting down for some long charting, a long charting session. We flipped through all of the S&P 500 members with this simple price view, and then we want to layer in the relative strength line. So we come over here to that level 1 chart. This is something I do frequently. We come over to that level 1 chart. We pull that chart style up. And again, we're in that same S&P 500 chart list. We're on, in this case, Expeditors International. We come down to the bottom. And we do that same trick again. So we apply this chart style now, the level 1 chart style, to everything in that list. So now when we flip backwards, here we're going backwards to Exelon, we're going backwards to Edwards Life Sciences. Let's go back to our Etsy chart. Again, now we've assigned that chart style to everything in the list. So we can actually flip through everything in the S&P 500 with that simple price view. Then we can assign the next level up to everything in that same chart list and flip through all of the S&P 500 members with that relative strength view. And if we wanted to keep this process going, let's say we wanted to bring in volume in the RSI, we go up to level 2. Well, okay, we've got to do the same trick again. We come down to the bottom of the workbench, hit apply style to all, confirm twice, and now that same level 2 chart style has been applied to everything in this list. So again, by having this kind of leveling, layering system, I can actually apply it to different chart styles, and I can review lists of charts, whether it's index components or watch lists that I'm building up. Even my portfolios, I actually do this a lot with my portfolio list. So I'll take all the individual stocks that I own, I'll put those in a chart list, and I'll apply that really simple chart style to everything in the portfolio list. I'll flip through everything that I own with that simple view, and then I'll layer in sort of the next chart style up, the next level up. Again, flip through everything that I own with that simple style, that level 1 style, and then up to the level 2 and up to the level 3 and 4. So again, having that leveling, layering system allows me to kind of build in this graduated view, even for lists of stocks. It's not just one thing at a time. We can actually do it for full chart lists, full of stocks. So lots of ways that these little tricks and this leveling system, I think, can help you stay focused on what really matters, stay focused on price and then relative strength and then whatever indicators come after it for you. So you can really build in your indicator order. That's the fun thing with this too. So depending on the indicators that are important to you, your level 0 and level 1 and level 2 might look very different from mine. You might have very different indicators and overlays that you want to see. Maybe you even want to take out all of those moving averages. So your level 0 chart, if you will, is really, really stripped out and is just the candlesticks or just the OHLC bars. Maybe you want to have a pure price view. Whatever your levels are, you can start to build those in with this kind of system, saving ChartStyles as you go and really building up that leveling system that's going to make sense to you. So I have got a ton of benefit out of this. It's something that I love to show people, something that I use, again, every week, every day in my own approach to the market. So hopefully this has given you some ideas and some things to play with here on the SharpCharts workbench. And again, just to mention it, we're not going to actually jump over and show off ACP, but if we did, the same concept applies. You can have this leveling system and actually apply those chart styles to everything in a specific list. So lots of ways to make this work in either platform. So I know we covered a ton on today's show, but hopefully you saw some things you haven't seen before. Hopefully you had fun seeing some of the ways that I have set up my personal charts, my personal chart lists and chart styles, and the way that I kind of bring all those concepts together with this ChartStyle leveling system. Again, a really helpful way for me to track the markets and specifically things that I own. You know, when I think about indicators, when I think about the value of indicators, they bring in an alternative view. They bring in a perspective that you might not be seeing on the price view alone. But at the same time, you know, a lot of people struggle with indicators because they can really kind of cloud your judgment. It's easy when you have 15 indicators on your chart. It's easy to start to make excuses for maybe a declining trend or a rollover or a support break, something like that. So by having this kind of stripped out price only view and then these levels above it, I personally find that I stay more true to the actual trend, the actual direction. I get to be a little bit more objective because my first stop is just price. I'm not really kind of clouding my judgment by having a bigger chart with tons and tons of indicators that might get in the way for me. So I've found that this is incredibly powerful, especially for things that I own. You know, it's so easy to make excuses for things that you own when they, the trend starts to break, things start to roll over, things like that. So having this leveling system, I think, is incredibly powerful for your specific portfolio as well. But hopefully you've seen some stuff today that you haven't seen before. Hopefully you've had fun digging into some of my charts and my chart styles. I want to remind you, we do this show every Friday, StockCharts in Focus. Again, focused on the product, focused on the tools and the features. Nothing intended to sales pitch you on anything. It's really just me sitting down, sharing stock charts with you, sharing my favorite tips, tricks, tutorials, shortcuts, all that good stuff. And of course, I have a blast sharing what I do with the site, especially on a day like today. Always fun to do something like this. So join me every Friday though, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. Couple of ways to watch. We've got StockCharts.com/TV. That is the live channel. So you can join us live at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time for the show every Friday, but also up on our YouTube channel after that. And of course, the new on-demand platform at StockChartsTV.com. Totally free to sign up there on demand. Got all the apps, Roku and Apple TV, Android, Chromecast, all of those different apps you can really watch on your schedule, whenever, wherever. If you haven't explored that on-demand platform at StockChartsTV.com, definitely check that out. There's a lot there. Brand new for us, just rolled out a couple of months ago. So you can always catch the show up there as well. I want to thank you again, though, for joining me on today's show. Again, my name is Grayson Roze, Vice President of Operations here at StockCharts. It's been a blast to be with you. We'll be back next Friday for another episode of the show. Of course, until then, chart on, my friends.
Hey guys, Dave Keller here with StockCharts.com. Thanks so much for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, and we hope you did, hit the like button right below. Also, we have so much new content every day. Consider subscribing to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button in the video or right below. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Have a fantastic day.